So I want to share this. This man is amazing. Great channel, Inside China Business. I do follow him on social media, on X and whatever, but his YouTube channel, he gives out amazing information. He's very intelligent, soft-spoken guy, but he has a tremendous amount of insight. He's living over there, working in China, and his data and information is very accurate. I just want to point something out that really speaks, especially on Canada Day. I thought this was very relevant. He's going to explain why the BRICS countries, China, Russia, etc., and now with what's going on in the Middle East, how that's impacting global supply of helium. And he ends the video by making a point that I think should really hit home for those living in my northern neighbors of Canada. So just take a quick listen.
Good morning. The BRICS and the Global South countries are reorganizing the trade flows of the world and thereby working around sanctions from Western governments. And then the war in the Persian Gulf and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz have blown up supply chains across non-BRICS countries. Today we're on the helium problem. There are Western sanctions on Russian suppliers of helium, so markets had to find another way to get it. Chinese firms stepped in and now serve as a conduit for helium gas markets by buying surplus supplies and exporting them to other countries, including in Europe, who just pay higher prices for Russian helium by transshipping it via Asia first.
And as he'll go on to explain, with the war in Iran and Qatar's plants and supply chain being disrupted by bombing, that now American companies that that at this point are pushing over 40% of the global supply, they are now in a position where they're actually jacking up prices and limiting their shipping supply because of this now strained global supply chain of helium. Russia is out of the global market, only can be done through a resale through Chinese companies, and now American companies are playing footsie, plus American companies are the processors of Canadian helium. And this is where we're going to skip ahead to the end of the video. Like I said, you should watch his channel just to get the full videos and insight, but I'm going to skip to the end for something that's extremely relevant to Canada. So give me 1 second.
Long term, countries with access to natural gas fields, pipelines, and helium reserves will gain a permanent operational and financial advantage over everyone else. Sounds like Russia. We're back to them again. They have big reserves, lots of pipelines, and lots of natural gas. So it's a boon to Russian producers like Gazprom. Where does that leave everybody else? Canada sees an opportunity. Canadian companies produce 3% of global supply, but has large untapped reserves. Currently, Canada exports their helium to the US for processing and liquefaction. So their idea now is to try putting some new policies in place, then drive fresh capital investment into the sector, then build out their own liquefaction industry, and get their fields in Saskatchewan producing 3 times more helium than they do now. This will create a secure helium supply chain for Canada and their allies 5 years from now, if all that works out. This is Xi'an. Be good.
Okay, so what he just said, huge, 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 and very important to analyze. Number one, he's not being jerky when he says 5 years from now. What he's saying is that Canada spent so many years not putting in the money and the planning, okay, from Ottawa through its private sector to planning the infrastructure to be able to take advantage of these kind of situations, okay? This is why you invest in your infrastructure. This is why you centrally plan and invest in your major industries. It doesn't mean you have no private market. It doesn't mean you don't have capital markets. That's not what we're saying. What it means is that you have to intelligently invest into your infrastructure, into your natural resources and your ability to extract and use those natural resources to better your country and to be a supplier or work with global markets before the crisis happens. Because if Canada had done that, Canada would be richer now than you could ever imagine. Because Canada has every natural resource that Russia has. Canada has every natural resource that the United States has. But Canada didn't invest in its own infrastructure to take advantage of those resources. Now, whether it's oil, natural gas, aluminum, steel, lithium, cobalt, copper, and now, of course, helium as well. Now, Canada and the Prime Minister running around the country, going to these different provinces, speaking to the First Nations, arguing with the other political parties, arguing with its neighbor to the south, all because of a mad scramble to try to take advantage of the war in Iran, with the war with Ukraine. And now suddenly Canada is in a position where the Asian and European markets desperately need what it has, but it didn't develop its infrastructure fast enough to take advantage of it fully. It's going to take advantage of it partially because you're seeing that happen in real time. But what he is saying is now Canada only at 3% and going through the United States, no more of that. No more sending your liquid natural gas to New Orleans or to the Gulf of Mexico, or Gulf of America as Trump calls it. No more rushing through the ports in California or the ports in the East Coast. No, 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 no. You have to develop your own. You have your own Arctic port, deep ocean port, by the way. Okay? In that area north of Hudson Bay. Time to take advantage of that, but it takes infrastructure building, it takes investment. And here's the one difference, and he mentioned this: trying to set policies that will create investment and capital investment through the private sector. In China, they don't wait for the markets, they don't wait for the private sector, they just do it. Same thing with Russia, for that matter. Okay? Same thing with Vietnam, for that matter. Same thing with North Korea, which was just said to have had a booming economy, per the Wall Street Journal. The reason that China is ready for this global market and chaos, and the US and North and Canada, for that matter, was not fully prepared, is because it has a much slower developing investment into human capital and infrastructure. Now, to Canada's credit, they're trying to change that right now. They're trying to go rapid fire. And whether you like the Prime Minister or you don't, you have to understand that arguments between Prime Minister Carney and Pierre Poilievre, or the NDP, or the Quebec province, or it doesn't, those arguments are important, but they're all going to be living in the same world, which is that Canada has resources. Canada has to take advantage of those resources. Canada has to accelerate and jump ahead and get the capital investment in infrastructure going. Don't wait for the private sector to go through their calculation and see how they can get as much money as possible out of every little inch. No, 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 no. Start it on your own. And then with that capital investment from the government, retain ownership for the people of the country, so that when your developed capital markets step in and suddenly you have a private corporation from the US or Canada helping to develop the said infrastructure, helping to extract the oil, the natural gas, whatever, helping to build the plants to process everything in Canada. When that occurs, the Canadian people, as I say this on Canada Day, the Canadian people will benefit. That is the world that Canada should be building towards, and they are taking steps towards that. But what he points out, and what is so true, is that if this had been done 10 years ago, 15 years ago, during Trudeau's era or before, Canada would be richer than Norway, Switzerland, Singapore combined. But it didn't. So they're on the path. They're making the right moves, but this is exactly why you make those investments. Again, credit to this channel. I'll definitely include I'll send a tweet about this out to him and give credit. But I just wanted to point that out. Happy Canada Day, everybody, and enjoy and be safe. Thank you.